Don't hear you. Don't hear you.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Now we hear you. Okay.
Okay, let's take it from the top.
You're going on and on and on. I'm trying to get your attention.
I'm sorry.
Incentive to come live, Dave.
No, it's like my kid. I try to get my kid's attention, man. That's advanced sometimes, you know. Okay, gewaltig. Zog the Heilige Gemara. We are right at the top of Daf Lamed Vav Amid Aleph. The last thing we learned was Reb Shimon, who said that Dam Shchita is not Machshir Zroim Lakabel Tuma. The Shchita itself is. We also learned that there's different types of blood. There's Dam Mesim and Dam Magefa. Dam Mesim and Dam Magefa means if the animal pagered, died of natural causes, or dam magefa meaning a wound, but the animal's still alive, or dam shchita. Those three are not machshir zorim makabotoma, but dam chalalim are because of a pasuk that says v'dam chalalim nishta. So what we left off with was that Reb Shimon holds there's no din that dam shchita will be machshir zorim makabotoma. The shchita itself is machshir meat, not dry. The dam will not work. So Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel, v'dam chalol mishte prat l'dam kiluach. What is dam chalolim? So Rashi says when a wound is made on an animal, so you start shechting the animal. First, a couple of drops come out, then it starts to flow, and then the flow turns black. Zok Rashi, when is it dam chalolim? That's going to be machshir royim when it turns black. Prat l'dam kiluach. When it's still just flowing and it doesn't get black, that's not machshir d'zroyim. Tosfos has a difference of opinion. Tosfos brings a right that even by the dam kiluach, there's also dam nefesh, which is machshir Israel. Tanu Rabbanan, hashoichet v'hitis dam al hadalas. You had a dalas of truma, so it's a fruit of truma, but it was never hochshel kabel tuma, so it's safe. And while he was shachting, dam spritzed out and went under the las. Now, if this dam is machshir kabel tuma, we have a peri of truma that's in danger of becoming tummy. So Rabbi Omer Hochshar, when dam spritzes out from the shchita onto a peri, the peri is hochshel kabel tuma. Rabbi Chia Omer Toilen, it's a suffix. What that means is going to come out in the Gemara. Omer Rabbi Oishia, ve'achas Rabbi Omer Hochshar, Rabbi Chia Omer Toilen, how do we pass it? Anu al minismoich, boyu v'nismoich al diver Rabbi Shimon, that it's not hochshar because the old dam shchita is not machshir zrayim. Rabbi Shimon Omer shchita machsheres v'lo idam. So Amar Papa, let's drill down and get clarity about what the machlokes is about. Amar Papa, hakoil moedim, everybody is moedah. Sai Rab Chia, Sai Rab Oishia, heiche de isel dam metchil vatzoif. Dam spritzed from the shchita onto this peri. If the dam remained on the peri, nobody came and wiped it off. They let the dam sit on the peri until the shchita was 100% complete. Because let's not forget, the moment he made the incision, dam started squirting and went onto the peri. So if he leaves it on the peri until he finishes the shchita, kula al maloi pligi the machshir. Everyone agrees that that's a machshir. I'm assuming the type of dam we're referring to. Yeah, could be, yeah. Because now we're working with dam shchita. Reb Shimon was talking about dam halal. I'm not sure if you hold dam shchita is machshir. I'm not sure if it has to be dafka dam shem nefesh yotzei. We know that by dam halal, so I'm not sure. It's a good point. So Dr. Makip Ligi, where do we have a machlokes between Reb Chia and Reb Oishia? Is b'niskaneach hadam ben simen l'simen. You shachted one simen, the dam is spritzing out, it goes on the gourd, on the glass, but then you wiped it off. So by the time he finished the shchita, by the time we reached the soif shchita, the dam was not on the peri anymore. So Rabbi Savar, yeshna l'shchita mitchila vatzoif. So this wakes up a machlokes that we learned a couple of days ago. Every part of the shchita, even before you cross the finish line, is a shchita. So that means all the blood that comes from the shchita is dam shchita. So therefore, it was dam shchita that was on this peri, even though it got wiped off, but there was dam shchita on it. The high dam shchita. Reb Chia Savar eino l'shchita al l'basai. Reb Chia is not called a shchita till the end. So if you wiped off the blood from the peri before the end of the shchita, it was never a dam shchita. And therefore, v'hai dam makahu. You look at the dam that was on this peri as dam makah. So it's interesting. The same drop of blood will go from dam makah to dam shchita when you hit the shchita, when you cross the finish line. So zok to Gemara, umay toilen. So what does it mean? Toilen. If it's not toilen, if the blood got wiped off before the end of the shchita, and you hold in the shchita ela b'soif, it's for sure not hochsher. It probably has to be a kosher shchita. Then it's not a shchita at all. Yeah, that's right. Umay toilen. So what does it mean toilen? It's an open and shut case. According to Reb Chia, it's not hochsher. The Gemara toilen hadavar at gemar shchita. It just means that when the dam goes on the prairie, which it's not in the bank yet, you have to wait. If the dam is not wiped off and they're still during the gemar shchita, then we have our answer that is hochsher. But if it got wiped off, then it's not hochsher. So imis ladam b'soif shchita machsher v'loylay machsher. So it's not really toilen. Reb Chia knows exactly what the halacha is. It's toilen is because we have to wait and see what happens. Umay boyu v'nismach al diver Reb Shimon. So what was the Gemara concluding? That Reb Shimon, who doesn't hold up any dam being machshir, where does that fit in? How does that have to do with their machlokes? So Gemara, because Reb Shimon loy machshir. According to Reb Shimon, the dam will not be machshir this the last. No dam will. It doesn't make a difference if you hold yeshna l'shchita mitchila v'tzoif or ein l'shchita ela b'tzoif. Dam is not machshir. L'Reb Chia machshir b'niskaneach. L'Reb Chia machshir, and Reb Chia is machshir So the question here is, if even if Chia is machshir, so how are they corresponding to halacha? But b'niskaneach miu ashvil adodi. If the blood got wiped off before the end of the shechita, then for two different reasons, but they come to the same conclusion that this peri was not hukshar. Marley machshir, marley machshir, even though they're completely two different reasons, but in this specific scenario, we have two against one. We have Reb Chia and Reb Shimon who say that it wouldn't be hukshar. Reb Oishi says it would be. We would go according to the Mandabar that it doesn't. Havelay Rebbe Chad, ve'ein devar shalechad b'makom shnayim. So, is it Rebbe? Yeah, because Rebbe holds yesh no l'shchita mitchila v'atzoif, and it's two against one, and you go with the two, because the conclusion of Reb Shimon and the conclusion of Reb Chia would be that it's not machshir. Zok to Gemara weiter. Rav Omar, Rav says, Rav Ashi says you can't say that's pshat. Because you're saying toilen doesn't really mean toilen. It just means you wait 3 seconds till the end of the shechita to see if the dam is still there. That's yen toilen. Toilen no oil mashma. Toilen means it's a suffix. So therefore, v'niskaneach l'Rab Chia sfukim misafkeli. Rab Chia doesn't know for sure ein l'shchita ela b'soif, and therefore even if it got wiped off before the end of the shechita, Reb Chia is not sure that it's not hukshar. Maybe it is hukshar. Because misafkele yeshna l'shchita mitchila v'atzayif, or ena l'shchita ela b'soif. He's mesubik what halach is, and therefore it will always be a suffix as to whether or not this was hukshar. Umay toilet. So what does it mean toilet? Means it's if it became tamei after it had such a hechsher, it would really be a suffix. Is it tamei or not? What do you do with truma that it's a suffix if it's tamei or not? You're not allowed to eat it, but you're not allowed to destroy it because you're not allowed to destroy good truma. So you got to have it wait around because you can't do anything. You have to build your windowsills like in Bnei Brak where they have all the rotting apple cores on the Shemitah year. I was once zoicha to be in Panovich Yeshiva on the Shemitah year, and there was such a beautiful window decoration to have a whole bunch of rotting apple cores lining most of the windowsills. And the aroma that it presented through the dorm at least masked the BO from the Israelis. As bad as it was, it did mask the BO. What? Well, they have a separate garbage can for it, like a green bin, so it's not being mavasid because it has kedushas truva. So Gemara, umay toilen. What does toilen mean? Loy oichlin. Well, that's kedushas shvius. Truma, it's real kanit. Umay toilen loy oichlin. You can't eat it, but veloy sarfin. But you don't destroy it either. So umay boyu v'nismech al divrei Reb Shimon. So what does it mean we're being soymech al divrei Reb Shimon? Because the same thing, Reb Shimon loy machshir. According to Reb Shimon, it would not be tummy, so you're not allowed to burn it. Reb Chia sveika. According to Reb Chia, you're not allowed to eat it, but you're also not allowed to burn it. As far as whether or not you're allowed to burn it, they both agree. Mar loy sarfe, umar loy sarfe. Beautiful. Havel Rabbi Chad ben Dor b'sholecha b'makom shnayim. V'hachi kamar kagoin zois toilen v'loy oichlin. Kagoin zois toilen is what Reb Chia said. Loy oichlin v'loy sarfin. So that's a permanent status of suffix, and that's what toilen means. According to Rabashi, toilen means la'olam. It doesn't just mean that for a period of a couple of seconds you didn't know. It means forever we don't know. Okay, so let's go more weiter. Boy Reb Shimon ben Lakish. Trid shal menachos. Rashi learned that a trid shal menachos is karte kemach hatzover b'mincha v'en shema nichnas l'soichai. So from Rashi it sounds is you have your flour in a big bowl to prepare your mincha. You dump oil into it, but not all of you don't thoroughly mix it. So not all of the flour is mixed into a dough-like mixture with the oil. Some of it just remains loose flour. So it's a loose flour that did not come into contact with any oil. So therefore it remains dry. Therefore it remains not hukshar l'kabel tuma. So the halach is moinin by rishain v'sheni. Now we do say that it wasn't directly hukshar l'kabel tuma. So the question is but there is a din of Chibas Hekdesh on it, I believe, because it's still Hekdesh. So we know just Chibas Hekdesh makes something Hochshel Kabel Tuma. So the question is, if it makes something Hochshel Kabel Tuma, what does that mean? Does that mean full blown Tuma? Mean it could become a Rishon and then it can make a Sheni if it touches it, it can make a Shlishi, or do we just mean because of Chibas Hekdesh, it's Hochshel Kabel Tuma, that it itself became Tameh, you have to destroy it? So that's the question. This new type of Hechsher is Royim, not through the Mashka, which is the way the Torah dictates, rather through this new concept of Chibas Hekdesh. Does it make it a full-blown Hechsher to be able to become Tameh and to make others Tameh, or is it only Lagavi Paslik? So Moinin by Rishon V'Sheni, or Ein Moinin by Rishon V'Sheni. Zok Rashi, the Tanya of Abbas al-Rabbis Eitel Mulavoina, which tells us that Chibas Hekdesh is Machsheres. Moinin by Rishon V'Sheni Kloimer im Nitma is a Betama Acherim Oilai. That was the question. Do you say Kima Hanya Chibas Hekdesh is only Lav Sulei Gufei, just to say that it's possible you can't eat it because it's kachim that became Tameh? Or, but Lamimna by Rishon V'Sheni Loi, Oidil Maloi Shna, it's a regular period and a regular Hechsher that therefore will become Tameh and be able to be Mitameh. So Rashi learned that there was a bowl, part of the flour was hochsher because it came in contact with the oil. We're talking about the stuff around the edges. Tosfos disagrees with that. So Tosfos, Pirish B'Kuntrish, Karte Kemach HaTzivurim B'Mincha Vein Shema Nichnas L'Soichai. But Frek Tosfos, Vim Tomer V'Yitztar Kli Linyan Hechsher. The keli should be mitzaref all the flour in there, and if some of the flour came into contact with oil, we look at it as if it all came into contact with oil. Just like you find it says kaf achas asar azor malay kataris. Anything in that kaf has the same halacha. If any part became tamei, it's all tamei. So therefore, Tosfos says, according to Rashi's understanding of what happened, it wouldn't make sense because that would be real hukshur. Because we look at everything in the bowl as it came into contact with the oil, even though the oil only came into contact with some of the flour in the bowl. So Tosfos argues and says the Mari Hacha b'shalei nasan adayin shemen b'mincha tchila. There was never oil put into it. It's only sitting in the bowl, and the question is, the balt that's in the bowl and has kedushas aguf. Do you say that the Chibas Hekdesh and Chibas Hekdesh is machshert? Okay, Zok the Gemara weiter. Amar Rav Elazar Toshma. Maybe we could bring a raya. It says Mikala Oichel Asher Yachel, which we learn from there. Oichel haba b'mayim huchsher. Only oichel that came in contact with water is huchsher l'kabel tuma. Oichel she'enei ba b'mayim loy huchsher. So we have a brisa that tells us that we learn from Kol Oichel Asher Yachel that the only thing that's huchsher l'kabel tuma is oichel haba b'mayim. This is Chibas Hekdesh. It's not Baba Mayim. It's not Machsher. Frag to Gemara. Reb Shimon ben Lakish is not an idiot. He knows this price. Yet he clears the child anyway. Otu Reb Shimon ben Lakish Leslie Eichel Baba Mayim. It's a price. Of course he holds it. Elamai. It must be that he doesn't necessarily agree with your conclusion that you learn from the pasuk. Otu Rish Lakish the Boila Loyoda Laikra the Hechshay the Maimu. Of course he knew. Rather, Reb Shimon ben Lakish, as Rashi says, Bekochim Iboilei, he has a shaila. What would be Bekochim? You have a Chibas Hekdesh, Kehechsher Mayim B'chulun Eloi. Maybe Chibas Hekdesh should also work just like water. So that's where Hachikim Iboilei. Chibas Hekdesh Ka'oichel Haba B'mayim Dami. Is it just like that? Oiloi. Zok to Gemara. Rabbi Elazar Nami Miyutur Krakamar. Rabbi Elazar's drasha is from an extra word in the pasuk. So Rabbi Elazar Nami the pasuk lei nalei. Rabbi Elazar held that avada was avada is machsher 100%. Sorry, avada not machsher. Avada not machsher. He learned it from a diak because there's an extra word in the pasuk. Why? Michte. Ksivit already says in the pasuk to tell us about hechsher's royim v'chiyutan mayim alzera. So the next clause that we quoted, Mikol Oichel Sheyachel, is completely redundant because we already said Kiyutin Mayim Alzera. So Lamali, why is the Torah putting these extra clause in place to tell us Lav Lemute Chibas Hekdesh. So this must be telling you that this hechsher of Chibas Hekdesh does not work. As Rashi says, the law have a hechsher, kehechsher mayim mamish. It won't mamish be hechsher mayim. It will maybe only allow it to become tummy, which was a shlokish shaila, but it definitely wouldn't make it into full blown tummy. So that is Rabbi Lezer's shita of how he views this, and he holds that shlokish shaila is not a shaila. It's pashut that it's not machsher. But you don't have a riot. Who said the fact that the Torah says this extra clause is to exclude Chibas Hekdesh, maybe to teach us something completely different? Lo ichad b'tumas meis, v'chad b'tumas sheretz. Maybe it's telling us that not only in order for something to become tamei with a sheretz doesn't need to be hukshar, but even to become tamei from a mace, it has to be hukshar. Utrichi, you need both, because you might say, ma'adech, if it could become tamei from a sheretz, it needs to be hukshar kol shekain. Or forget, you could say madach to become tummy with a heavy tumah, like a mace. You still need hechsher, kol shekain, to get a lighter tumah, you need to be hechsher. Zokt, the Gemara, no, you need both. You need to know side by mace, side by sheretz, because they each carry their individual svaris to be machmer. Utrichi, yesh bin tumas mace, hasam u'davoy hechsher, mishum deloy betama bechadasha. There's a minimum size that it has to be a kazayis. A chadosha, a smaller thing, will not become, a smaller piece of a mace will not be matama. Only a kazayis when a mace is matama. So you see that mace has a certain kula. It's not easily matame something. It needs a bigger shear, and therefore, maybe only mace is hechsher. Avol sheret, the matama bechadosha. You see, it's in a way more intense, more potent than tumas mace, because it's even matama with a little small piece. But on the flip side, it doesn't have a tumah chamur of tumah shiva. Although mace the matama tumah shiva, ema loy liboy hechsher, and for the Gemara tricha. So therefore, you don't have this extra pasuk to tell us that hechsher doesn't work, chibas hekdesh doesn't work, because maybe it's used to tell us sheretz and mace. I have a little bit of a problem, and it's probably an amaratus question, but I didn't even see if anybody talks about it. We learned a couple of lot ago a machloikis about whether or not you can use shiurim as a chumrah, and the Gemara says hanech l'shiurim because that's a special thing. As you see over here, Rabbi Lazar, this is on Daf Lamed Daled Amud Aleph, says Rabbi Lazar Tuma Mishiurin Loy Gamrina. That's right. So that's not according to everybody. It's actually Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar Tuma Mishiurin Loy Gamrina, and we're not going to Rabbi Lazar, so it works out actually pretty good because Rabbi Lazar is the one who uses the pasuk to tell you that Chibas HaKodesh is not machshir, right? But we're going to Rish Lakish, and maybe Rish Lakish would hold Toma Mishur and Gamrina, because there was a discussion there if you could use the fact that there's a different shear to say a chumrah or a kula. So maybe Dashtim. Okay, that works out good. I didn't have that. It was Rabbi Lezer over there too. Okay, Zok to Gemara weiter. See, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Moshe Rabbi Yosef. Frag Rabbi Yosef Akasha. Rabbi Shimon Omer, our Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Huchsharu b'shchita. It says beferish that shchita is machshir. Now shchita has a similarity to Chibas HaKodesh. You know what the similarity is? They're not liquids, they're not dam. The Torah lists beferish a liquid, a mashka, is what's machshir. Now we're talking about substitute machshir. Chibas HaKodesh is what we would call a substitute machshir, but shchita, according to Reb Shimon, is also a substitute machshir. So Reb Shimon says that the substitute machshir of shchita is huchshirit va'afilu lemimnu b'hu rishon v'sheni. V'amai? Why would the hechsher of shchita, the substitute hechsher of shchita, even make it tomei mamish? If you learn from the Yiter, like where Belazar learns, that if it's not mamish mayim, it won't be machshir. Elamai, you have a raya that in fact even a substitute machshir like Chibas HaKodesh would be machshir in Gansen, and the item that was hukshir would become tamei, even to be metame. Amale Abaye, Asu Kehechsher Mayim Midirabanan. Don't bring me a raya from Reb Shimon, because Reb Shimon is only speaking about Midirabanan. Midirabanan is Matama. But our Shaila here is maybe not Midirabanan. We want to know it's Machshir Mamish. Reb Zeir. So Reb Zeir tried to bring a raya. So what happened is Reb Yosy brought the first raya, and Abaye neutralized it. Now Reb Zeir brings a raya. Tashma haboitzer lagas. Now, if you have grapes in a bowl and you want to capture the juice, you want to use the juice, so then if juice oozes out of those grapes, those are a mashke that you want to keep, and they will be mashke, the grapes themselves, to be makabel tumah. But what if I didn't want any juice to come out of the grapes? You know why? Because my intention was to take these grapes to a press. So I don't want to lose any mashke. So I don't want any mashke to come out of it at all. So if you're boitzer lagas, meaning I'm not nicha with the mashke that comes out of these grapes, would that mashke be machsher these grapes lekabel tumah? Shammai omer huchsher, Hillel omer loy huchsher. And Rashi tells us that really it's loy huchsher. I'm not nicha with the wine. The reason why Shammai said huchsher is because we're afraid someone will want to capture it once, and it will be mitam. So therefore, we treat it lechumra that it's huchsher. But Mikra didn't say huchsher. That's right. It's kiyutin mayim alzera. It has to be a liquid that you want it to be there. Yeah. So Zog to Gemara, v'shosik lei Hillel Shammai, and Hillel didn't jump all over Shammai. Why didn't he jump all over him? How could you say huchshar? Amai v'alav oichel hababa maimu. This is also what we could call substitute hechsher. It is water. True, it is a real liquid, but it's not a real liquid that he wanted. So once again, it's not qualified as the hechsher as listed in the Torah. Once it's not the hechsher listed in the Torah, and you just want to use some auxiliary reason to call it a hechsher, now it falls into the category of substitute machshir. So it's no different than Chibas, Hekdesh, and Shchita. So they still didn't jump all over Shammai and say, how could you say it's machshir? Omar le Abaye, asu kehechsher mayim midrabanan. It's vayt only midrabanan. So now Rabbi Yosef got frustrated because this is the second good raya brought that Abaye wants to deflect. That's only midrabanan, and this is what Rabbi Yosef told him. Omar Rabbi Yosef, aminu lach ana huchshiru b'shchita. I said huchshiru b'shchita, and you're telling me v'at amrit li asu kehechsher mayim, and not only you tried that, Reb Zeir also deflected. You also not only deflected my raya, you also deflected Reb Zeir's raya. And you told him the same thing. Well, guess what? Maybe that's Reb Shimon's ben Lakish. That's the whole shaila. Maybe he's also declaring midrabanan. How do you know his shaila wasn't midrabanan either? Reb Shimon ben Lakish nami asu kach shemayim. Amar lei otu Reb Shimon ben Lakish litleis coming by light. We know if it's only hochshem midrabanan and it became tamei, it's not you have truma. That's only hochshem midrabanan and it became tamei. You can't destroy it. It's toilet, right? So Zog to Gemara, after Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish litleis coming by light. You think Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish was clearing if Chibas HaKadosh is machshir just litleis lo oichel v'lo sarfen? Ki coming by light lisray. He wanted to know if you would actually burn it, meaning he's discussing deraisa. Michlal, so whatever it is, you see them here, the Chibas HaKadosh midaraisa. Now you see clearly that we're learning in Reb Shimon ben Lakish, Reb Yosy was learning in Reb Shimon ben Lakish, that is a question of a deraisa. Reb Shimon ben Lakish's shaila is, this deraisa, the kehechsher, is it only to allow it to become tamei, or would it even allow it to make other things tamei? But either way, we're talking about deraisa over here. Minalam, where in the world do you find such a concept in the Torah that Hekdesh makes it uksher? The pasuk is kiyut in mayim. Midrabanan they can add chibas Hekdesh, but you're saying it's deraisa. Where do you see it from? Ilema midachsiv v'abosar asher yiga b'chol tamei. So it says in the pasuk v'abosar asher yiga b'chol tamei. Any basar of kachim that touches tuma, I believe this is talking about a shlomim. Lo yeyachel v'eish shareif. And notice again, the pasuk repeats itself. V'habosar kol Torah yechel basar. So let's see what it says. Are you going to say it's midachsiv v'abosar asher yiga b'chol tamei? And the question is, you have the Torah talking about basar that became tamei. Well, we have to ask, how did this basar become huksher lekabel tuma? High basar is kasher b'mai. With what did it become huksher to be mekabel tuma? Ilema is kasher b'dam. If it became huksher lekabel tuma with the dam from that you shechted it, the Amr Abchia bar Abba, Amr Rabbi Yochanan, Minayin l'dam kachim she'einay machshir she'nemer lo yisechlenu ala oretz tishbechenu kamayim. What blood is machshir? Blood that you can just spill out. Dama nishbach kamayim machshir, but she'einay nishbach kamayim because it's a carbon and you need to retain that blood because you need to do the zrika einay machshir. So we know dam of a carbon is not machshir. So how did this meat that the Torah is talking about that it became tamei? How is it huksher? It can't be from its blood because dam of kochim are not machshir. Ella, what must have happened is the iskasher b'mashki beis mitbachaya. There's water in the butchering area of the Beis Hamikdash, and some of that water could have went on it. As Rashi b'mayim sheracha to bahem abosor bebeis hamitbachayim bazar. For Gemara, that wouldn't work either because the Amr Rabbi Yosy bar Chanina mashki beis mitbachaya loy dayin sheidachin. Never mind that they're not mekabel tuma, and we treat them as tar, unlike other mashkin that are matama. Nevertheless, elashein machshirin, they're not even machshir the meat to be mekabel tuma. So once again, we have a mystery. We have basar shlom. How in the world could it have become tamei if it was never huksher lekabel tuma?
What's so special about this water that it doesn't have it?
They made it. They said that all normally mashke is makabel tuma and it becomes a rishon. They suspended that in the Beis Hamikdash. I think it has to do with the difficulty that it would cause, but they suspended that tuma in the Beis Hamikdash. V'chitema tirgama adam, and if you're going to say that when it says mashke beis mitbachaya, it didn't mean any liquid. It meant dafka the dam in the butchering area. For Gemara, it doesn't make sense that that's what it means. It says mashki. So can I ask you a question? What do you think the Gemara means? It says mashki, so it can't mean dam. It's got to mean water. Well, how do you understand from that?
It could be both. Mashke, like.
So what are the derive from mashki? Because mashki is inclusive of all different types.
Correct.
So that's how I understood the pasuk to pshat. It doesn't say dam. It says mashke beis mitbachaya, meaning any liquid in the butchering area would not be machshir. But Tosfos doesn't learn that way, and I was a little bit surprised. Look what Tosfos says: V'chitei metirgama adam v'mashke ka'amar. Iker diyuka. Where is the Gemara extracting from the word mashke that it's referring not only to dam? Iker diyuka lav midekatani mashke biyud. Now, what does that mean, mashke biyud? What does the yud have to do with it? Because the yud means plural, so it's plural. So all the different mashkins. The minalam dilma ksiva mashke behei. Maybe it's written with a hey. How do we know that you have an accurate printing of it? Ella adochen tzamach mashke lo sharabim. Dochen means it's tahar. So dochen has a connotation that's it's a plural tense. No, we're referring to a member in the Gemara. Right? Rabbi Yosy bar Chanina said, "Mashkin beis mitbachaya loidayin shein dochen." So dochen has a plural connotation. So it's very interesting. I just talked. I said mashkin. So Tosfos says either because it's a lashon of plural, has to be because of a lashon of plural. Either the word mashkin itself has a connotation of plural, or dochen. So zok to Gemara, that's not machshir either. So exactly how did this meat became tamei? And alav diskasher b'chibas hakodesh. It must be that when the Torah is talking about basar becoming tamei, it must have only been huksha to the Chibas HaKodesh, because there really is no other source of hechsher. So that is the whole makar that Chibas HaKodesh is machsher, and therefore Rosh Lakish has a discussion to what extent is a machsher. Does it make it like a regular thing that can be makabel tuma and give off tuma, or maybe it just means that it could become tamei? Fragt the Gemara, v'dilma k'd Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Maybe it's like Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Then what did he say? Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, you had a carbon shlamim. Now, what's unique about a carbon shlamim is that the bailam keep everything. The bailam keeps the meat. The bailam keeps the hide. So naturally, he's going to want to prepare the animal so that it would be easy to skin, because it's his problem. So and the owner purposely on the way bringing it to the base of Mikdash, he brought it through a river because he wanted the animal to become all wet. Because we know when the animal is all wet, when you shaft it, it will be easier to skin it. So maybe he's speaking where that water is not water from base mitbachaya, it's not dam, it's actually water from a river that was still on the animal b'shas shechita, because they didn't dry off the animal. It was wet from walking into the base of Mikdash. Shachta, and when they shechted it, v'adayin mashke tefechaleh. Maybe that's how it became tummy. So you don't have a Chibas Hekdesh is machshir, there could have been regular water on it. Elam is Seifa, you know where the Rai is from? It's from the second half of the Pasuk, where the Pasuk repeats V'abasar, Kal Torah Yechal Basar. This second word V'abasar is extra. We already know we're talking about the Basar in the Pasuk. It says V'abasar, L'Rabbis Eitzim U'Levayna. From that second Basar, we learn that not only is Basar Matame, not only is Basar become Tame, which is a Michael, Basar is eaten, but wood and Levayna, which are not eaten, which normally wouldn't be able to be Bakabal Tumah, because they're not Maicholim, but of Hekdesh, even Eitzim and Levayna would become tummy like a Maichel. Frank Gemara, Eitzim or Levayna, but they're not edible, they're not food, so how can they become tummy? Ella must be Chibas Hekdesh, Machshir Lahu, Umashv Lahu Eichel. So the Sefer tells us that even non-food items, because of Chibas Hekdesh, we consider them food items. Because Chibas Hekdesh makes everything better. Hachanami, if we could say that Chibas Hekdesh makes a non-food item to be treated like a food item, which is a much bigger jump, surely it could also make basar, which is a food item that's not hochshar, into hochshar. Hachanami, Chibas Hekdesh machshir asa. Zogt. Well, it's because the word v'abasar is extra.
I know.
Why did it say twice?
It can mean anything.
So you're saying good. So well, from here we see that darshaning psukim is not a do-it-yourself project. We need the Tanaim and the Meroim to tell us how to do it. Because on our own we would likely not come to the same conclusions. So Dr. Gemara, so now we have the Shaila versus Shlokish, but we know that there's something called Chibas Hekdesh, and we know that it's Deraisa. So now that we know that, we can probe the scope of what this is. Ki mahanya Chibas HaKodesh lepsula degufei, aval lemimle berisha v'shed loy, oidilma loy shna, and for that the Gemara remains with a teku. We would not push it to Shaila, even though Abaya said it could be the Rabbanan, but Lagabe the Deraisa, we still have a Shaila. And the Shaila will be ultimately is if something can be in tummy because of it, are you going to burn it or not? Okay, we'll stop here.